Okay, today's lesson is on equivalent fractions, and equivalent fractions are fractions that have different denominators but represent the same number. So we're going to start with 1/2 and 2/4, and they are equivalent fractions. So I'm going to pull down my fraction chart and demonstrate that these are equivalent fractions using a pie chart and a fraction bar. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a pie chart to represent 1/2. We can see here that half of the pie is filled in. Now I'm going to create a pie chart to represent 2/4. When I pull up the pie chart that has 2 out of 4 pieces filled in, it does in fact match 1/2. So I know that these are equivalent fractions. They have different denominators, but they represent the same number. They're equivalent. If I wanted to find another equivalent fraction for 1/2, all I would have to do is multiply the numerator and denominator by the same number. So if I wanted to find another equivalent fraction for 1/2, I could multiply this fraction by 2. 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So I know that 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. I can erase that. And I can multiply my fraction times another number. So if I wanted to multiply 1/2 times 3, as long as I multiply 3 times the numerator and denominator, I'll come up with an equivalent fraction. So 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 2 is 6. So 3/6 is equivalent to 1/2. Let's check by making a pie chart. So here's my pie chart. This represents 3/6, and it does in fact equal 1/2, so I know that they're equivalent. Okay, we're going to move on to the next problem. Okay, what other fractions are equivalent to 1/2? So this time we're going to represent the fractions using a fraction bar instead of a pie chart. So again, if I want to find fractions that are equivalent to 1/2, all I have to do is pick any number and multiply that number times the numerator and the denominator. So this time I'm going to do 5. 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 times 2 is 10. So that means that 5/10 is equivalent to 1/2. So let's see if we're right by making a fraction bar. So I'm going to pull down 1/2 in my fraction bar. There it is. And then I'm going to make a fraction bar for 5/10. Okay, there we go. And when I line them up, they are in fact equal. They're equivalent. So even though there are different denominators here, 10 and 2, they still represent the same number. 5 out of 10 is the same as 1/2, 1 out of 2. All right. Let's practice a little more. Get rid of these bar graphs and erase this. And this time, if you have some paper next to you, why don't you solve this problem along with me? Now, this isn't your practice problem that you'll have at the end of the video, but if you have some scratch paper next to you, just follow the steps with me. So let's find an equivalent fraction for 1/2. All right. Okay, so write 1/2 on your paper, and I'm going to pick 6. Let's multiply it by 6. You can choose any number you want, and you'll still be able to find an equivalent fraction. All you have to do is take the number that you chose and multiply it times the denominator and numerator. So 6 times 2 is 12, and 6 times 1 is 6. So I know that 6/12 is equivalent to 1/2. Let's try another one. This time, let's multiply 1/2 by 8. 8 times 2 is 16, and 8 times 1 is 8. So I know that 8/16 is equivalent to 1/2. So you can choose any number you want here and just multiply that number by the numerator and denominator. All right, let's move on. This time we're going to find a different fraction. Let me erase this real quick. Let's find a fraction equivalent to 2/5. 2/5. Choose any number you want. I'm going to start with 3. And multiply both the numerator and denominator by 3 to find its equivalent fraction. 5 times 3 is 15. And 3 times 2 is 6. So 6/15 is the same thing as 2/5. Let's make a fraction bar and double check our work. 2/5. There it is. And 6/15. Alright, and when I line them up, they are in fact the same. Different denominators, but they represent the same number. 2/5 is equivalent to 6/15. Okay, let's move on. Okay, what are other fractions that are equivalent to 1/2? We already did that one, so we're going to skip that. We practiced that. Okay, what are fractions equivalent to 2/5? We practiced that. And here are your 2 practice problems for this evening. Write 5 equivalent fractions for 3/5. And your second practice problem is to draw 2 different pie charts to represent equivalent fractions. Make sure that you do these 2 practice problems in your lesson log. Write down the strategies that you use to solve each problem, and then come with any questions that you may have tomorrow. Good luck!